No one saw the black ship arrive. That was the first thing Commander Elian Voss understood when the alarms began screaming across Kepri Station. Not docking alerts. Not pirate warnings. Not even war sirens. These alarms were older, buried beneath centuries of software updates, written for dangers no one believed still existed. Unknown gravitational displacement. Unauthorized insertion. Mass signature concealed. Every screen in the command chamber flashed the same message in stark white letters over a red background. Officers froze at their stations. Civilian delegates gathered for emergency peace talks fell silent. Beyond the transparent shield of Kepri Station, the battlefield glittered with the remains of 22 years of interstellar war. Broken cruisers drifted beside shattered carriers. Destroyed satellites spun endlessly through the cold light of distant stars. 5 empires had fought here for resources, territory, revenge, pride, and fear. Entire generations had known nothing but conflict. And now, something new hung in the void. The ship was enormous. Longer than any dreadnought in recorded history, shaped like a blade forged from darkness itself. Its surface was so black it seemed to swallow starlight. No running lights. No insignia. No visible weapons. Sensors struggled to define its edges, as though reality itself refused to acknowledge it fully. An Othari elder whispered the question no one else dared speak. Who sent it? No one answered. Elian's tactical officer swallowed nervously. It didn't arrive through any gate. No warp flare. No jump distortion. It simply appeared. That's impossible, said one of the council mediators. Elian kept his eyes on the ship. Impossible things are usually the most dangerous. He activated the communications array. Open all channels. Standard languages, encrypted bands, legacy distress frequencies. Hail them. The station transmitted greetings, warnings, and identification requests in dozens of dialects. No reply came. The black ship remained perfectly still. Then every fleet in range reacted. From the eastern debris field, the Crimson War formation of the Verek Dominion powered its main weapons. Across the battlefield, Hellion Republic carriers raised shields and launched interceptor screens. Drassen heavy cruisers rotated broadside, presenting rows of rail cannons. Each side assumed the ship belonged to another, each prepared to fire first. They think it's a new superweapon, the lieutenant whispered. They're going to start another phase of the war, said the navigation officer. Elian clenched his jaw. All fleets, hold position. This is Kepri Neutral Command. You are under ceasefire restrictions. The AI interrupted. Energy spike detected. The black ship moved. Not forward. Not toward any target. It rotated slowly, deliberately, until its prow faced the combined fleets of every warring empire. Then a voice filled every frequency simultaneously. Human. Come. Deep. Absolute. Do not fire. The word human echoed through the chamber like a thunderclap. Humans still existed, of course. Traders, engineers, mercenaries, survivors of lost worlds who kept mostly to themselves in distant systems. But humans had not intervened in galactic politics for over 2 centuries. The stories about them had only grown darker in their absence. The species that survived planetary destruction. The species that rebuilt faster than logic allowed. The species whose technology kept evolving in silence. Elian had always considered the legends exaggerated. Now he wasn't so sure. A Verek battleship fired. Its spinal lance erupted in brilliant blue light, a beam capable of slicing orbital stations in half. The energy struck the black ship directly along its forward hull. Nothing happened. No shield flare. No explosion. No visible damage. The beam simply vanished into the ship's surface as though absorbed by infinite darkness. Shock rippled across every command frequency. Where did the energy go? No shield signature detected. That's not possible. The black ship responded. A thin line of pale light opened beneath its hull, like a seam parting in reality itself. Not a weapon charging. Something stranger. Something precise. The Verek battleship disappeared. One moment it filled tactical displays with armor, weapons, and crew. The next moment there was empty space. No debris. No radiation burst. No wreckage. It was simply gone. A silence heavier than vacuum fell across the fleets. The human voice returned, unchanged. We said do not fire. Weapons powered down across the battlefield. Fighter squadrons halted attack runs. Carrier bays sealed. Admirals who had spent decades perfecting strategies suddenly remembered fear. Elian inhaled slowly. Patch a direct channel. The console chimed. Connection accepted. The main screen shifted to the interior of the black ship. Its bridge was dimly lit, filled with quiet motion and precise discipline. At its center sat a human officer in a black uniform with no visible rank markings. His hair showed silver at the temples. His expression carried the calm weight of someone accustomed to impossible decisions. "I am Commander Elian Voss of Kepri Station," Elian said carefully. "You have entered neutral territory during an active armistice. Identify yourself." The human studied him for a long moment. "I am Admiral Jonas Vale," he said, "of the Vessel Knight Covenant." He spoke the name as though it should be recognized. No one reacted. "We are here on behalf of humanity." A Drasan diplomat leaned toward the microphone. "Humanity has no authority in council conflict mediation." Vale's gaze shifted slightly. "Humanity has authority in extinction events." The chamber fell silent. Elian spoke carefully. "Explain." Vale leaned back slightly in his command chair. "Your war has crossed a threshold," he said. "Threshold of what?" "Attention." A tremor shook Kepri Station. External sensors flickered as new signals appeared beyond the battlefield's edge. "Long-range scan update," an officer whispered. "Multiple contacts emerging from the Perseus Rift. Unknown classification. Hundreds, possibly thousands." Vale did not turn to look. "They followed your war," he said calmly. "Large conflicts generate patterns. Patterns attract predators." A projection appeared beside him. Vast shapes moving through deep space, angular and wrong, their configurations shifting between frames as though reality struggled to describe them. One of the oldest delegates whispered a forbidden name. "Devourers." Vale nodded once. "Yes." He leaned forward slightly, voice steady. "And unless you listen carefully, your war will not end with victory." The entire chamber seemed to hold its breath. "It will end with silence." The word devourers spread through Kepri Station like an electrical surge. Some officers whispered it. Others refused to speak it at all. For centuries, the name existed only in restricted archives, and ancient warnings passed quietly between the oldest species. Most modern civilizations dismissed the devourers as myth, a story meant to encourage peace through fear. Now the tactical display showed thousands of unknown contacts emerging from the Perseus Rift. Myth had become measurable. Commander Elian Voss studied the shifting sensor data carefully. The approaching objects did not move like ships. They did not travel in formation. Each contact seemed unstable, its structure changing subtly between scans. Mass readings fluctuated wildly. One moment a contact registered the density of a small asteroid. Seconds later, it expanded to the mass of a moon before collapsing again into something thin and fragmented. "How can mass change without releasing energy?" whispered one of the scientists. Admiral Jonas Vale answered calmly through the open channel. "By not following the same physics." Silence followed. "How long before arrival?" Elian asked. 17 hours, Vale replied. "Less if your fleets panic and begin high-energy targeting scans." A Hellion general stepped forward. "We can withdraw. Our fleets still outnumber your vessel thousands to 1. We retreat, regroup, and develop countermeasures." Vale's gaze remained steady. "They are not coming for territory," he said. "They are coming for signal density." Elian frowned. "Explain." "Large wars generate powerful energy patterns," Vale said. "Weapons discharges, communications bursts, AI prediction networks, mass casualties. To the Devourers, these patterns resemble a beacon." "You're saying war attracts them?" Elian asked. "Yes." A quiet dread settled over the chamber. "Conflict accelerates technological development," Vale continued. "Rapid adaptation produces complex intelligence signals. The Devourers consume complexity. They harvest thinking civilizations," whispered the Arthari elder. Vale inclined his head. Several smaller fleets immediately attempted emergency jumps away from the sector. None succeeded. Ships entering fold space reappeared seconds later, violently pushed back into real space with navigation systems crippled. "They're blocking escape routes," an officer said. "Yes," Vale confirmed. "They do that." The Drassen delegate slammed his claws on the console. "Then we fight." "You will lose," Vale said calmly. The certainty in his voice ended the argument instantly. The Hellion general spoke more carefully this time. "You have encountered them before." "Yes." "And survived." "Yes." "How?" Vale paused briefly. "By becoming quieter than extinction." No one immediately understood. Elian narrowed his eyes. "Clarify." Vale gestured, and historical data appeared on the screen. Human colonies powering down planetary grids. Entire fleets drifting dark with minimal energy output. Communication signals reduced to almost nothing. "You hid," Elian realized. "We adapted," Vale replied. "We learned how they detect intelligence." "They search for rapidly evolving systems," Vale explained. "War accelerates evolution. Peace stabilizes it." The Drassen delegate hissed softly. "So humanity survived by retreating into silence, while the rest of the galaxy continued fighting." "We warned the Council," Vale said calmly. "Repeatedly." Several delegates avoided eye contact. "We proposed cooperative development models," Vale continued. "Shared research initiatives. Reduced competitive escalation." "And when we ignored you?" Elian asked. Vale met his gaze. "We prepared contingency measures." Outside the station, the Devourer contacts multiplied as sensor clarity improved. Hundreds became thousands. Their shapes distorted space itself, bending starlight around impossible angles. "What do they want?" Elian asked. Vale answered simply. "Everything that thinks." Cold realization passed through the chamber. "They don't conquer. whispered the Arthuri elder. They consume. Vale nodded once. They do not negotiate. They do not communicate. They do not recognize surrender. The Hellion general folded his arms. Then we unite our fleets and prepare a defensive line. Vale shook his head. A defensive line is still resistance, he said. Resistance is still signal complexity. Signal complexity is still food. Frustration grew visible across every species present. Then what do you suggest? Elian asked. Vale's voice became quieter. We end your war. Shock rippled through the chamber. That is impossible. 22 years of blood cannot simply stop. No empire will abandon advantage. Vale allowed the reactions to fade before speaking again. You misunderstand, he said. I did not say you will choose to end the war. A faint tremor passed through the station. I said we will. Energy readings began appearing around the black ship. Not in recognizable patterns. Space itself seemed to distort slightly around the vessel. What is that? Elian asked. Vale answered calmly. The reason interstellar wars are about to become obsolete. Outside the station, the black ship began to unfold, and the approaching darkness accelerated. No alarms sounded when the black ship began to change. There was no surge in radiation, no heat bloom, no detectable weapons charge. Instead, space itself seemed to pause. The hull of the Night Covenant separated along invisible seams, unfolding in slow, deliberate motion. Dark structures extended outward like petals opening in perfect silence. Between those structures, deeper darkness formed, void so absolute that even sensor signals struggled to return data. Commander Elian Voss leaned closer to the display. The ship was not transforming into a weapon. It was becoming something else. What are we looking at? Whispered the navigation officer. Admiral Jonas Vale answered calmly. A restraint system. That looks nothing like restraint, muttered the Hellion general. Vale's expression did not change. That is because your understanding of force is limited to destruction. Outside the station, thousands of warships from rival empires watched together in silence. Weapons remained powered but inactive, commanders waiting for the human vessel's next move. Elian crossed his arms. Explain what your ship is doing. Vale gestured, and a projection appeared across the main screen. At first it looked like abstract mathematics, branching lines, shifting curves, and probability nodes pulsing faintly. These are conflict vectors, Vale said. War generates predictive structures, he explained. Strategic responses. Technological escalation pathways. Resource competition loops. The projection expanded, revealing thousands of branching outcomes based on decades of battle history. You mapped the future of this war? Elian asked. For 22 years, Vale confirmed. Shock passed through the chamber. You've been studying us this entire time? The Arthuri elder asked. Yes. And now? Elian pressed. Now we remove the possibility space. Before anyone could ask what that meant, something invisible spread outward from the black ship. No beam, no pulse, just a ripple passing silently across the battlefield. Across thousands of ships, weapon systems shut down instantly. Rail cannons lost charge. Missile locks disengaged. Targeting computers returned failure errors. Power cores remained operational, but energy refused to route into destructive systems. Report, Elian ordered. The tactical officer stared at her console in disbelief. All weapons across all fleets are inactive. Damaged? Asked the Hellion general. No, she replied. They simply will not function. A Verek commander appeared on emergency channel. Our antimatter warheads cannot arm. Targeting software rejects fire commands. We cannot initiate combat protocols. Elian turned toward Vale. You disabled every weapon? For now, Vale replied. How? By modifying probability. Silence filled the chamber. That is not possible, said the Hellion general. Vale showed no reaction. Your weapons still exist, he explained, but the probability of successful activation has been reduced to near zero. The lieutenant stared in disbelief. You changed reality so war fails? Yes. Outside the station, confusion spread rapidly. Pilots attempted manual overrides. Engineers reset fire control systems. Nothing worked. Any system designed for large-scale destruction refused to activate. You didn't destroy our weapons, Elian said slowly. You made them irrelevant. Vale inclined his head slightly. The Devourers detect civilizations capable of rapid violent evolution. He gestured toward the approaching swarm. By removing your ability to wage war, we reduce your signal complexity. You're hiding us, the Authori elder said. For a limited time, Vale confirmed. A monitoring drone suddenly vanished from sensors. Then another. They're testing us, whispered the sensor officer. Sampling local intelligence density, Vale said calmly. Elian felt tension tighten across the chamber. What happens if they detect suppressed war potential? They feed anyway, Vale replied. And your ship cannot destroy them? Vale paused briefly. No. The admission shocked the room more than anything else. No species has defeated them directly, Vale continued. Then why come? Asked the Drassen delegate. Vale's voice carried quiet weight. Because survival is not always victory. Outside, the Devourer swarm entered visible range, distorting starlight with impossible geometry. The black ship moved forward, positioning itself between the galaxy's warring fleets and the approaching darkness. What choice do we have? Elian asked. Vale answered simply. You can remain separate species competing for dominance. He paused. Or you can become something quieter. The lieutenant frowned. What does quieter mean? Vale's eyes hardened slightly. A civilization that no longer needs war to evolve. For the first time in 22 years, the fleets of 5 empires faced a future where war was no longer possible. The Devourers arrived without sound. They did not emerge from hyperspace or tear open visible rifts. One moment, deep space beyond the battlefield appeared empty. The next, stars began to distort as something vast moved between them. Commander Elian Voss felt the change before the sensors confirmed it. Light bent subtly, as though space itself had grown uncertain. Visual confirmation, whispered the sensor officer. The display magnified the approaching entities. They did not resemble ships. They resembled fractures in reality. Angular shapes folded into impossible geometries. Portions of their structure appeared transparent one moment and solid the next. Their surfaces did not reflect light. They consumed it, leaving dark silhouettes against distorted starfields. Contact velocity decreasing, the officer reported. They are observing. Across the battlefield, fleets remained motionless, weapons still inactive under the influence of the black ship. Generations of enemies floated side by side without firing a single shot. For the first time in recorded history, there was no battle plan, only waiting. Admiral Jonas Vale's voice came calmly through the channel. "They are measuring the system's complexity level." Elian crossed his arms. "Explain what they see." "They detect intelligence through variation," Vale said. "Rapid communication bursts, tactical prediction networks, escalating weapon development cycles. And now they detect reduction." On the display, faint streams of energy extended from the Devourers like invisible tendrils brushing the edges of the battlefield. Each tendril caused minor fluctuations in sensor stability. "They're scanning us," whispered the lieutenant. "Yes," Vale said. "Hold all transmissions below Level 3 complexity. Limit unnecessary signals." Immediately, Kepri Station reduced non-essential communications. Civilian networks powered down. Military targeting systems remained offline. Across 5 empires, thousands of ships fell into quiet synchronization. War had trained them for coordinated action. Now survival required the same discipline. "They are evaluating whether this region still produces rapid evolutionary outputs," Vale continued. Elian looked toward the distorted shapes. "What happens if they determine we are still a threat?" Vale did not hesitate. "They harvest." The first Devourer entered the outer debris field. A shattered cruiser drifted directly in its path. As the entity passed through the wreckage, the metal hull dissolved into dust-like particles, then vanished entirely. No explosion. No energy burst. Matter simply ceased to exist. "They are stripping informational structure," Vale explained. "Not consuming material?" asked the Hellion general. "Material is irrelevant," Vale replied. "They consume organized complexity." Another Devourer drifted near a destroyed satellite cluster. The remnants of communication arrays fragmented into glittering dust before fading into nothingness. "They erase technological history," whispered the Arthari elder. "Yes." Elian felt tension tightening in his chest. "They are evaluating whether we are worth consuming." Vale nodded once. "Civilizations at peace tend to plateau in destructive innovation," he explained. "War creates exponential development spikes. And we have been broadcasting those spikes for decades," Elian said quietly. "Yes." Another tendril of distortion swept across the battlefield. Several inactive drones disintegrated silently. "They are testing signal depth," Vale said. The Hellion general studied the display carefully. "They are ignoring armed fleets. For now." Across the battlefield, ships powered down non-essential systems. Engines dimmed. Communication networks reduced to minimal encrypted pulses. Thousands of warships became still silhouettes in the void. Silence spread. Not forced silence. Chosen silence. For the first time in centuries, rival species cooperated without negotiation. Fear had succeeded where diplomacy had failed. The Devourers slowed further. One massive structure unfolded like a crystalline web, extending delicate branching forms through space itself. "They are probing long-term behavioral projections," Vale said. Elian frowned. "They can predict our future actions?" "They analyze complexity gradients," Vale replied. "If probability suggests continued rapid escalation, they consume early." A long moment passed. Nothing attacked. Nothing fired. Nothing escalated. "They are uncertain," Vale observed. "Uncertainty is good?" asked the lieutenant. "Yes." One of the Devourers moved closer to the black ship itself. Its structure warped, attempting to analyze the human vessel. For the first time, faint distortion rippled across the Night Covenant's hull. They detect your technology, Elian realized. Yes, Vale said calmly. Then why not hide your ship as well? Because someone must maintain the suppression field. The Devourer paused near the black ship, then slowly drifted away. They cannot classify our technology easily, Vale said. That reduces feeding efficiency. The Othari elder blinked slowly. You confuse them. We present insufficient pattern reward. The battlefield remained silent for another long stretch of time. Then, gradually, the Devourers began to leave. One by one, the distorted shapes withdrew deeper into interstellar darkness. Sensors tracked their retreat cautiously. "Are they leaving?" whispered the lieutenant. Vale nodded slightly. "This region no longer appears productive." Relief spread slowly through the chamber. 22 years of war had nearly summoned extinction. Silence had prevented it. The Hellion general spoke quietly. "What happens when they return?" Vale answered honestly. "They always return." Silence followed again. "But next time," Vale added, "you will decide whether they find anything worth consuming." Hours passed before the last Devourer signal faded completely beyond sensor range. No one celebrated. No one spoke loudly. Relief came slowly, cautiously, like survivors stepping onto solid ground after a storm. Commander Elian Voss remained at the central viewport, watching the empty darkness where extinction had nearly arrived. "They're gone," the sensor officer confirmed quietly. "For now." Across the battlefield, fleets maintained low energy states as though afraid sudden movement might attract attention again. Admiral Jonas Vale remained on the channel. "The suppression field will remain active for 12 standard hours," he said. "After that, we withdraw." The Hellion general stepped forward. "And our weapons will function normally again." Uneasy murmurs spread across the chamber. The Drassen delegate spoke carefully. "You expect us to simply trust that war will not resume?" Vale studied him calmly. "No," he said. "I expect you to understand the consequences." Elian folded his arms. "You've shown us the threat, but fear fades. History suggests conflict returns." Vale nodded slightly. "Yes." He gestured, and a final projection appeared on the main screen. Galactic conflict simulations. Hundreds of branching timelines. In every scenario where large-scale war resumed, Devourer contact probability increased dramatically within decades. "They track growth patterns," Vale explained. "Your previous war nearly crossed the threshold." "And now?" Elian asked. "Now you know the threshold exists." Silence followed. "For centuries," Vale continued, "your civilizations believed war was an inevitable step in development." He paused. "It is not." The Othari elder spoke slowly. "You are proposing enforced peace." Vale shook his head. "No, I am proposing informed survival." The projection shifted again, displaying cooperative technological networks across multiple species, shared research systems, combined energy distribution grids, joint exploration initiatives. "When civilizations evolve through collaboration rather than conflict," Vale said, "their complexity stabilizes. Stable complexity does not attract devourers." The Hellion general studied the data. "You are suggesting permanent structural change to interstellar society." "Yes. That will take generations." Vale inclined his head. "Better generations than extinction." Elian looked around the chamber. Representatives of species that had fought for decades now stood quietly together. No threats, No accusations. Only shared understanding. "We cannot force unity," Elian said. "No," Vale agreed. "But now you understand the cost of division." The Drassen delegate gave a slow nod. For the first time, peace is strategically necessary. Vale allowed the faintest hint of approval to show. "Correct." Outside the station, the black ship's structure began returning to its original form. Dark geometric petals folded inward until the vessel once again resembled a silent blade against the stars. The suppression field slowly weakened. Weapons systems across the fleets began responding again. No one activated them. No one even attempted to. After what they had witnessed, war no longer felt like power. It felt like risk. Elian turned back to the channel. "What happens now, Admiral?" Vale answered calmly. "Now you choose what kind of civilization you become. And humanity? We continue watching." The Hellion general tilted his head slightly. "You act as guardians?" Vale considered the word. "No," he said finally. "We act as survivors." The black ship began moving slowly away from the battlefield. Its engines produced no visible thrust. Its silhouette faded gradually into the dark between stars. Before the connection closed, Vale spoke one final sentence. "You feared the black ship because you thought it was a weapon." He paused. "It was never a weapon. It was a warning." The transmission ended. Silence filled Kepri Station once more. But this silence was different. Not fear. Choice. Across the fleets, commanders began transmitting something that had not been heard in decades. Not threats. Not ultimatums. Proposals. Joint reconstruction efforts. Shared defense networks. Scientific alliances. For the first time in 22 years, warships moved not toward battle, but toward cooperation. And far beyond their sensors, hidden in quiet space between stars, human vessels continued watching, waiting, ensuring the galaxy never again became loud enough to be noticed.